I wouldn't recommend this for beginners, to be honest. The margins are harder, but I landed on selling some soap. The best business advice I could ever give is ask your customers what they want, give it to them, and then ask them, did you get what you wanted? Amazon has made me rich. It's not passive income. It's a lot of work, but I was able to buy my dream house. I was able to buy an R8 Audi. I'm not even a car guy, and I bought a nice car. If you're an upstart, you got some time to learn, you're going to pay your Amazon tax, I would wholly endorse. It's not passive income, but it's definitely worthwhile.
Maybe you can just give them a little bit of background about who you are and how did you tap into this space? How did you find Amazon and what intrigued you to start launching a product on Amazon?
So I used to be a television reporter, and I was doing a live weather hit in Wisconsin. It was the biggest blizzard in a decade. I went on the air at 10 o'clock at night. Everybody's home in their pajamas, but instead I missed my cue. I couldn't see the cameraman. The storm was so blurry in front of me, and I felt like an idiot. I was wondering, what am I doing with my life? And that was a really big coming of age moment. I decided to quit the news industry that night. And it took me a couple of years going back to school to get an MBA, working for various corporations from one failed startup to another. And I finally fell into Amazon. So I know a lot of people are testing Amazon as a beginner straight in, and they dabble directly in Amazon. But I had the blessing of working on the corporate side, working on Amazon first. And so I worked with women's plus size clothing, kitchen equipment. Back in the day, there was PPC clicks for 2 cents a click, and I had the #1 slot with rice cookers. I was part of Amazon's first beta advertising group when I was selling women's plus size clothing. And so I took that knowledge and realized after all these failed startups kept collapsing that I wanted to do it for myself. And so I took the money that I made doing that in my 20s and then invested into making an Amazon product.
Nice. Well, that's exciting. So you do have some background in media and marketing and and you thought, like, I could do this myself, like, why not? And how did you find your first idea, or not your first idea, this product idea that we're going to talk about today? How did you find that idea? How did you think about it? What intrigued you to create Sage?
So I've been to China, and it was overwhelming. When you go to the fair, the Canton Fair, there are 10,000 vendors, 3 football stadium-sized buildings, and it's just overwhelming. And I had failed with other Chinese products before, and so I came up with the idea that I wanted to make something in the United States. I wouldn't recommend this for beginners, to be honest. The margins are harder, but I landed on selling some soaps. And so my daughter's name is Sage. She just turned 5, and I wanted to make a brand for each of my kids. And so I made this avatar after Sage, and I was really interested to leave this to her someday. So that was my goal when I first started this particular product line. And I thought, oh, beauty would be a great category because my daughter is beautiful, and I want to make her feel pretty and make her feel like a princess, whose father gave her a soap company someday, right? So that was kind of the goal and the vision behind it. And so I started testing some soap samples. I ordered everybody from Timbuktu's product, all kinds of soaps. And I decided that I wanted to do some artisan cold press soaps. And the reason for that is that I saw a niche that was underserved. And I also saw a sub niche, which was underserved. And that was for men's artisan soaps specifically. So there's a lot of pretty giddy soaps for women. And so the very first soap I launched was a masculine kit. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, how's that possible with, a feminine logo? But I was kind of going for the neckbeards of the world. I was trying to go for the people that watched anime, and because nobody was targeting this demographic at all, right? And so the #1 competitor that I identified was Dr. Squatch. They're gigantic, but their prices are also gigantic. So I thought, I could go to market, undercut them, and steal some of their audience, and steal some market share, and create a business line. And so that's what I did. I actually figured out where everything was manufactured. All of my competitors, I knew where they were getting their soaps made. I figured out which manufacturer would work best for me. I placed a test order. Test order was great. I figured out what scents they had and how I could package it together. And when it comes to beauty, it's most important on how it's packaged and delivered, right? So I made a second version of these soaps that was saran wrapped. The problem is that took 4 times as much time. And so I invested in some upgraded packaging. I could show all the scents on the back and the sides. I could make this feel a little bit more corporate or mainstream, and then charge a different rate. And so that's how I tested the market. I ran a bazillion A/B tests using PickFu, which really helped me figure out how to design it, how to build a main image. And I found, I don't know if you let me share my screen or not, if this makes sense, but so on the listing, this main image here, I tested so many times, like we're talking 12 A/B tests to land on this. And I tested packaging. I tested layout. Should I have the soaps, in a rotation like this? How should I show the inner soaps? How should I rotate them? Should it be a plus sign? Should it be a quad? Should it be stacked? Should I show the box? Every sort of combination I A/B tested. And the reason I spent so much time A/B testing is because the click-through rate is the most critical step to increase sales on Amazon, in my opinion. And it's also the cheapest to pull a trigger on.
Nice. And I'm really excited to get into that, actually. I would love to. And I'm guessing that's all of that you did it in the first year after launching, right?
So a lot of this A/B testing was before launching.
Oh, right? Before launching.
Yeah. And it was important that I picked out the packaging correctly to begin with. So things like color, readability, the logo. I hired 99 Designs to pick out the avatar and to see like what design logo would look the best. I A/B tested against the competitors. So I was looking at my soap versus Dr. Squatch and the other soaps out there.
So were you doing like FBM initially before launching,
No.
or how did you test it before launching?
So I straight up used PickFu and PickFu, PICKFU, allows you to poll 50 random people you can demographically target if you'd like to see what their preference was. And so that's a great pre-launch tool because it only costs like $50. And so I had a really good success with that. I'm sure Travis is an affiliate if you want to throw an affiliate link in. But it's valuable because you can see like how the consumer is more likely to engage. And so that was like a starting point, very important. How I showed a cut in the box so you can see the soap inside of it, what I named the soap. So I ran all those tests to figure that out. And the results worked very well. 720 reviews, people were happy. We came up with some great designs. The ingredients were great: coconut oil, canola oil, shea butter, all these ingredients that people were looking for. We also figured out through market testing, like which ingredients would resonate with people and why. People didn't want hard, chemically pressed soaps. And so by finding a product that was underserved, a demographic that was underserved, and then giving them what they wanted, I think is fundamental. The best business advice I could ever give is ask your customers what they want, give it to them, and then ask them, did you get what you wanted? And sometimes they'll be like, yeah, that was exactly what I wanted. And other times they'll say, nope, I hated it. I wanted this instead. And then you can decide, is that the right customer? Is that the right ICP? And then you can alter the product and go from there.
Wow, no, that's really good advice. And so you did a lot of marketing before launching, which is really impactful. And that's a very good tip, to get customers, putting the customer first and realizing like what do they want and what are they responding to better. Did you do that after contacting the manufacturer, like while you were in communication with the manufacturer, or did you do that research even before finding the supplier and communicating with them? Because I think a lot of people a lot of beginners battle with like communication with the supplier. Should I do things before, after, during? Did you do this after your contact with the supplier or before?
So one thing that you can do before you even have a supplier is take like 8 competing products and run a PickFu on that to see like what consumers are more likely to click on and why. Then you can go to your supplier with an idea of like, hey, I want to hit the market with this edge. So if I wanted to do a soap that was more feminine or masculine, for example, or if I had a different color or a different scent to the packaging or the soap, those are things that we could go to the supplier with and say, hey, I know exactly what I'm looking for. Can you give me this? And I think that's valuable. Now, once you've locked in the packaging, you're a lot more limited on what you can change. And it's more of a layout question and how you lay out the main image and how you display it. So things that I've learned, show all the accessories, make sure there's a keyword on the main image, make sure people understand what they're looking at, show color, show ingredients if at all possible. If you're selling a supplement, put a pill on it. So showing the soap in and out of the package was something that I've learned was a really helpful thing to do.
Nice. And the soap was like, just your idea was like, I want to create a soap for, like, you saw a gap in the market because you wanted to create a soap for a certain demographic. Was that your driver, or did you do like some kind of research? Like, let me look into the soap market and let me see like how much search is being done, how many people are looking up soaps. And
yeah, so the nice thing about the data is you can see the search results. And so for every one product that got the word man or men's soap in it, there were 100 for females. And so it was very apparent that even if the search volume was a quarter, there was a 1 to 100 ratio of product competition. So it just made it easier to make a launch. And so when we launched this product, it shot up immediately into the top of search, right? So if the launch date was, roughly first week in December there, then by December 11th, we were in the top 20,000 BSR. And you can see this chart here. It's basically always been in the top 20,000 BSR since day one of launching. And here we are a year and a half later. And so to get a sustainable product that allowed me to raise prices over time, that allowed me to sustain a BSR. So even though there is some seasonality, the seasonality difference is, going to top 7,000 BSR to top 12,000 versus going from 20,000 to 100,000, where it falls off a cliff, right? So being able to have a product where you can sustain a top 12,000 BSR for months on end is a really helpful thing. It really keeps the sustainability. It makes it easier on your warehousing and all the shipping. And by the way, we actually chose to cut the soap. So I would buy the soap loaf from the manufacturer. I'd take it to my manufacturer and we'd cut the soap, then we'd put it inside the box, then we put it into a white shipping box and then send it into Amazon. And then Amazon would ship it out by FBA. Depending on what you want to cover next, COGS or costs or whatever, there's a lot of added costs that sometimes you're not expecting, and labor costs, or maybe a soap batch goes bad, or something melts, or maybe you cut it wrong. You got to train labor. So there's some things you don't expect to happen. And I wouldn't recommend opening a warehouse for your first product. That's for sure. Try and get it all pre-made at the facility and ship it straight into FBA, and limit your exposure, limit the touch points. Don't pay for it to ship twice.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're trying to be cost effective in the beginning, especially when you're testing an idea. Opening a warehouse could be very high, very pricey. And I'm guessing, like, until the point of view, like, so you got the design, you did PickFu marketing test, you did some research to see that the keywords or the search volume is mostly marketed towards women. There was a niche there was a gap that's open towards men, and you thought, let me utilize that. How did you find your competitors manufacturing? Like, how did you know where something can be manufactured? Because some people do battle with finding manufacturers or suppliers.
Yep.
And sometimes they're like, oh, I don't know where to find a supplier that makes my product.
So sometimes the packaging of the competitors would show where it was made, and then you could just Google that location and address and ascertain it. Other times, there's places like Import Yeti. This is more for international manufacturer location, but every import record is available, so you can see where something is coming from and where it's going to. So if you know the address of one, you can find both. So I do recommend that. But in our case, there's only 3 manufacturing facilities in the whole country that make artisan soap, and we called all 3 and figured it out. And so we chose the one that we thought would make the most sense for us. That could have a good turnaround, lowest costs, highest quality.
So you ordered samples from each one and communicated with them to see like who's a better communicator, who's better cost, better quality.
Absolutely. And phone calls are critical during this process. If you don't have a phone call, you don't have a relationship. You really have to have that connection to your account manager, a la the manufacturer, whoever's taking your call. Otherwise, there's no skin in the game for them. Otherwise, you're just a transaction. You're not a partner.
I see. And yeah, no, I you want to try to build that friendship with the supplier, because if things, turn good, then you want to maintain that relationship. You want to be a friend with your supplier and not just a business transaction, because,
Yes.
a lot of there's a lot of hurdles and issues that could happen with manufacturing and shipping, and you want them to help you. So I always think it's a good idea to build a relationship with the supplier. And how much did it cost you to order samples? I see over here that it says like you spent $100 on samples, $250 on design, $100 on softwares and subscriptions for doing some marketing and research. So that's really budget friendly so far. So now you did all your research, you did your design, and you're about to you picked your favorite supplier. You're about to order your first inventory order. How did you decide how much to order, and how much did you order?
So I think 1,000 units is a pretty standard MOQ, minimum order quantity. Anything less than that, you're going to stock out if it's successful too fast, and you're not going to be able to get a full market read. There might be some exceptions to that with more expensive items, but for me, I was very certain of what I wanted to accomplish. I was also launching first week in December, right? So the best time to launch a product, in my opinion, is that Thanksgiving rush. And so it's actually a great time to launch right around Black Friday. And I was a little late. We were a couple weeks later than I wanted to be, but basically launching December 5th, we immediately shot up. I sold through 500, 600 units in that first 30-day span. It's exactly what I set out to do. We were able to get #1 new release in artisan soaps. That badge was critical for our success. We were able to have really good ACOS in the first month launching. Those are things you can't get if you launch in July with a non-July seasonal product, for example. So that's what happened. And then even after the December holiday came and gone, January was still strong for us. We just kept that momentum up. Then we pushed into the next holiday, which was Valentine's Day. Buy a masculine soap set for your loved one. And then after that, it just was sustained. It was just really stable.
That's amazing. Did you run into like a moment where you're like, oh, I might run out of inventory and I have to like split a second order? How soon did that happen? Because it sounds like you had a really successful launch. And
so
how did you handle that?
One of the nice things about tools like Helium 10 is that you can see everybody's stockouts by following this blue line. So I did good the first year, but I had my first stock out on 11/20 of 2021. You can see a little gap there. That might have been my listing going down or a stock out. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we got back pretty fast. You can see it was only down for 3 days. But listing yanks or going out of stock, definitely don't recommend. #1 rule about selling on Amazon is never go out of stock, right? Because the second you go out of stock, you lose all your momentum and you don't have the ability to regain it that fast. Like it sometimes can reset you for 2 to 6 weeks, depending on how long you're out of stock. Definitely try to avoid that. One of the things that I did, and I wouldn't recommend this necessarily, but this is what I did, is to have a 60-day supply at my warehouse and a 60-day supply at Amazon. And so if I saw a spike in sales at Amazon, I had some run rate to get a reorder in. And because I was selling in the United States from a manufacturer in the United States, my turnaround was only 6 weeks on an order. And so I felt pretty comfortable. So that's the nice thing about beauty or consumable products is that, they're generally made in the United States, but the downside is margin. For most beauty products made in the United States, you're going to pay a little bit more on the COGS and whatnot.
Yeah, that's amazing. So like you didn't run into this issue till like a year later. I mean, a lot of new sellers run into it in like month, especially if they sell really well, they run into it like into month 1 or month 2, where they're like, oh, my product is selling and I need to order more. And now they're like, their surprise, their supplier is like, it's gonna take a month or 2 to get it ready and ship it, and it takes time to get here. And
sometimes you have to ask the question, what happens if this is successful? And sometimes it's harder to answer that than the opposite. What's going to happen if this doesn't succeed, right? So asking both of those questions, the inverse of the other, you're going to have a lot more thinking time to avoid taking the stupid road. You got to go down the right road. So asking your supplier, like, hey, what's your turnaround if this works? If I sell out in 30 days, what can you do? And get that in that particular quote, I would get in writing so you can force them to honor it.
Nice. And did you create an LLC and a trademark for this product like before launch?
Yeah, I started an LLC, Age of Sage LLC, and went all in on that. It's not necessary to have an LLC, but it's definitely helpful. I found that Amazon's identity verification was easier, that setting it up with the suppliers was easier because everybody took me more seriously. I had a domain name, I could get the trademark, and I put it all in a legal structure, all set up. Not hard to start an LLC, just a couple $100. Definitely would recommend.
Nice. And you did that before launch, right? You did it
Yeah.
all, just to get the Amazon brand registry. It just helps with marketing and more support,
Yeah,
and
so I because of my background, I own a digital marketing agency called My Amazon Guy, and I've launched many products before this particular product. The things that I've learned and the choices that I've made is that I was going to be successful. I was going all in. So I was making bigger bets and bigger decisions, and I had enough experience to know that without the trademark, it was going to be harder to list the product. I needed the brand registry. I wanted to have beautiful A+ content. I even have premium A+ content on my listing, which I'll screen share here, right? So I built out a brand story like this. I took advantage of all of the horizontal modules. I took advantage of having alt text behind the photos, which helps me with SEO. I built premium A+ content, which you have to have a few listings up before you can do that, but it takes up a lot of horizontal space, takes up a lot of vertical space. I even put 500 words of crawlable text outside of the images, which also really helps with SEO. And I built one of my favorite modules is the product grid comparison, and you can compare and contrast products. And so if somebody may not like my design like this, they might like the same product packaged a different way, right? And so being able to product compare and contrast is another great way to also increase AOV. Maybe you got multiple scents like I do. They'll buy more than one soap package. Not everybody, but 2 or 3% of people when they see this, more to add to cart, sign me up. So all of those things are very important. Another thing too is you can get a brand store. So if somebody clicks on your brand name like this, you don't want that to go to search results. If you don't have a brand registry with Amazon, it'll go to search results, show your competitors, but instead mine goes and shows the brand store. I think that's a lot better for everybody.
Wow, yeah, that's really rich, and you made a really good point. Like when you're into this, several years into this business, and you know what works and what doesn't, you start taking more risk. You start investing a little bit more, like you mentioned earlier. Like you're going in, you know exactly what you need to do. Like you're confident, like this is what needs to be done, this is what works, this is what doesn't, and I just love that comes naturally after doing this process over and over again. I think it's scary for a lot of beginners because there's so much to learn when it comes to like marketing and finding suppliers and getting your first inventory and shipping. There's so many learning curves, to for beginners to kind of get acquainted with. And once you do, this process becomes like easy and fun, and it's really nice, like seeing what you've done here. Like this is such a beautiful product, and I think a lot of people are interested in hearing like about the numbers, if you're comfortable in sharing.
So before we show the numbers, I also want to point out that I also made mistakes. And
yes, and I would love to get into that. Like 3 top mistakes is one of our biggest thing, because people love to hear about mistakes and like how can we avoid making mistakes. So
so one of my biggest mistakes is I launched too many soap products, too many soap variations or scents. So I made things and I called them funny names. I thought, oh, I'm going to sell to multiple demographics. I'm going to get the teenage boys to buy this product. So I made soap scents like Lit, Drip, Bussin', 5, which you can see right here. This did not sell jack. So like terrible result. I also made a passion scent variation where I had apple, cinnamon, and pumpkin spice. This one did okay, but not as well. But the nice thing about buying a product that you like is that you're okay having extras around the house. You're okay with shipping those out to your friends. So So that's something that you can do to avoid making a giant mistake and not have to be embarrassed by having to give out, pimple popper to all your friends, because people look at that and think you're crazy. And you'd be right. I am crazy. I shouldn't have launched a product called Pimple Popper, with this brand. It was a dumb move. So sometimes I think product expansion, too many there. So that was the biggest mistake that I made. The other mistake that I made, here, I'll stop the screen share. The other big mistake I made was opening up a warehouse. And I really had this big plan that I was going to have vertical control. I wanted control of everything. I wanted to control the manufacturing. I wanted to control the warehousing. I wanted to control the distribution. And that was really defeating of my margin, because as awesome as this soap was, made about $100,000, I was paying way too much in warehousing costs. And although it was profitable, but because of all of the expansions I did, I took a lot of the margin out, right? So what I should have made on my soap business in a year is about $250,000. What I ended up doing is dumping that entire $250,000 back into the business and over expanding. So I wouldn't open up a warehouse if I did it again, and I wouldn't expand to too many cents. Those were the biggest mistakes that I made.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I feel like a lot of people think more options is better. It makes you unique on Amazon. Like, oh, look at me, I have more colors, I have more options, I have more scents. But that's a really good point. Yeah, it could backfire because it becomes too confusing, or like too many colors. It's like, I don't know which one. Like, simpler is better. Don't give me too many options. Like, I think that's a good point. Also, I think buyers in general like effortless buying. They don't want to go in there and be like, oh, there's so many here, like this is exhausting. But
so having too many options can be hurtful on conversion rates. And if you have a dual parentage where you have both size and another variation like scent or package quantity, then the consumer will see some inactive products and they're going to bail. It's going to cause conversion loss. So I'm a big proponent of singular parentage. That's something I got right with my soaps. I only had a scent variation. I wouldn't combine it with my other 1.0 packaging, for example.
Yeah, that's a good point. And definitely warehouse in the beginning, especially for new, maybe for someone as experienced as you, like thinking like, oh, I need the warehouse, like this is going to help me, I want full control. That's someone that's more experienced can make that decision. But definitely for someone new, like I wouldn't recommend investing in a warehouse and employees like from the beginning. Like, do it yourself, grow it, scale it organically. It's gonna save you a lot of money. And do you have a third mistake that you can share with us? Maybe something else someone new could benefit from?
So I didn't make this mistake on this product, but one mistake I made in previous products was taking a partner on, and I wanted to have full vision control. So I corrected that mistake by being the sole owner of the business. The problem with that is that it leads you to make more aggressive decisions without somebody with defense coming in and saying, hey, you're all gas and no brake. So it's a continuation of the mistakes in a sense. But it was the road rash of having had a partner who didn't see things the same way that held me back. And so I think some people would value having a partner. I did not. I wanted to be the sole visionary.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's a good point. I can see how having a partner could cause some conflict. And all right, now let's look at the numbers. And I think that's what most people are like excited about, to see like how good the launch did. Ideally, we would like to see it like month by month. I don't know if you have that available. We can.
So I'll pull up.
We can take what we have.
So I'll pull up directly in Amazon so you can see everything live and see it. So inside of Seller Central, you can click on the SKU, and they have a lot of data, which is really awesome. And so if we look at the last 12 months, you can see these nice charts and all of the data. Did I pull up the right one? Hold on, I got to click the ASIN button. Here we go.
While you do that, I just want to say like how amazing it is to see like how when you do things right, like you have a really successful launch for a brand, for a product, for an idea that people want. A lot of times it's people are like, oh, there's so many competition, Amazon is oversaturated, this and that. But when I look at it now, like e-commerce is never going to be oversaturated. There's always room for new ideas. There's always room for new trends. There's always room for making change. You know, people get tired of the old ways and they want to see things that are different or cater to a different audience. And one last question before you go through the numbers, like all this happened, like you only marketed on Amazon, right? Like this is there. Did you do any outside marketing or
So
ads?
So in the first year, I did everything directly in Amazon. It is entirely possible to keep to the basics of PPC, SEO design, and catalog work on Amazon and be successful, in my opinion. And I'm living proof of that. Having said that, TikTok's been getting crazy in the last year or so, and so I did test some influencer videos towards the end, and it changed how branded search developed. So we were able to see the amount of people searching Age of Sage as a brand more than quadruple. That's not a word. More than 5x the week over week when we ran the influencer videos. And so I think depending on if you're trying to build a brand, then influencer videos are incredibly important. So I would recommend them. So here's my month to month. So in the first month in that December, sold $34,000 in sales right there.
$34,000 in sales revenue in the first month.
Yep, 3,400 there. 2,300 in month 2. 4,800 in month 3.
That's amazing for a product launch in its first year. Like to be making these numbers, that's incredible.
And then August was our best month at just under $11,000. And this is one SKU in the full brand. For context, this is $1 million brand, but this is just one SKU of that. So you can see here, here's the net sales, $97,000 in sales, net sales $95,000. A lot of Amazon charges eating up most of the margin right there at $62,000, with the net proceeds of $33,255
in the first year.
Yes, I think it's going to be a little longer than a first year since it's including. Yeah, that's longer than the first year.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, for a product to make that much in the first year, that's pretty cool. And you said you guys were about you almost made this. You mentioned earlier you made almost $250,000 in sales.
So it's $1 million brand. So this is one SKU in the mix. I have all of the other soaps that were complimentary, tumblers, and some other products, all at the Age of Sage store. And so all of these things combined, even had some sage sticks, over $1 million. This is one of the influencers I hired on a different product, and did some stuff. I even did Forever Roses. So everything all combined grosses over $1 million per year. The soaps were the most profitable of the mix.
Yeah, and did anything interesting happen like during this period? Is there anything like you would share that you remember, that something interesting that happened or unforeseen circumstances that came across with Amazon? I know there's always something with Amazon that, for some reason has to happen.
So the good news about this particular product is that nothing surprised me. And that's because Amazon has beaten me up so much in the past that I knew what to avoid, right? So one thing that happened to me on a prior product launch is I had this hot sauce as a product, and I shipped it into Amazon. I paid Amazon to do the bubble wrap. I paid them to do all of the shipping, and they ended up shipping it in padded envelopes. This is a 5-pound glass bottle, and they shipped it out in padded envelopes. So one of the things I chose to do is to make sure I package everything before it gets to Amazon. So when I shipped this in, I had a 4-pack of these. I put that into a shipping box, and then I put that into a container and loaded it up and shipped it in. So I knew not to trust Amazon to ship my products in boxes, and that when you're a beginner, do not trust Amazon. Do not trust Amazon to do the prep work for you. You need to put it into a box before it gets to Amazon. Whatever you want to ship to the consumer, put that in a box.
That's a really good point. Yeah, Amazon is funny when it comes to that, and it's understandable. They're dealing with thousands, if not millions of orders, and they're just following procedure or something. So you cannot trust them with your product. They're not going to take care of it like you would. To them, it's just like they're just trying to get to the end of the list of products they have to ship. Cool. Well, I just want to thank you, Stephen. I think this was awesome. I mean, thank you for sharing the journey of like, finding and launching this product. It's really insightful and inspiring to see a successful launch like this. It inspires a lot of people, but it's also good to see how like this is stuff that can be learned, and when it's well done, it can be a great success. And this is just one product of many that's made you a lot of money. So it's really inspiring, and thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being transparent and allowing us to see this journey and sharing the numbers with us and the mistakes and the marketing tips that you've given us. Like this is all stuff that we value, and I just want to say thank you for that.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, I hope to talk to you again.
Yeah, and by the way, Amazon has made me rich. It's not passive income. It's a lot of work, but I was able to buy my dream house that has a lake and 17 acres. I was able to buy an R8 Audi. I'm not even a car guy, and I bought a nice car. I was able to do these things. I was able to create a company and employ 500 people because of Amazon. So, if you're a beginner trying to dabble in this, if you're a 60-year-old trying to do a retirement plan and thinks this is passive income, probably not a good fit. But if you're an upstart, you got some time to learn, you're going to pay your Amazon tax, I would wholly endorse it. It's not passive income, but it's definitely worthwhile.